Hey everybody, this is GGB. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of college basketball games. Newsflash, it is in fact Saturday, guys, and that's where we get all our college basketball. But we got some upsets yesterday, not big ones, mind you, but ones that are worth mentioning just because I went over them yesterday. In the MAC, Ohio did pull off the upset, technically speaking, against Buffalo. Caused Buffalo to fall at a tied for 5th place, as I said before. Ohio still didn't move since Toledo also was able to pull it out yesterday. That's what happened yesterday in the MAC, and that's the upset we got yesterday. We also got, I think, only one upset. I think about one upset in the Mountain West. We had 4 games going on in the Mountain West. Only one upset is somewhat of a surprise, but I would not have guessed this as the game that pulled off an upset. Air Force came close to beating Wyoming this weekend, but ultimately came short. Fresno State also came close to upsetting Boise State, but Boise State made a great shot to force overtime and then was just the better team in overtime. So they stay undefeated in Mountain West play at 8-0, 14-game win streak. Very impressive for the Broncos. And then you also look at it, the other game that also didn't end up upset, San Jose State was traveling to New Mexico to play. New Mexico actually won that game, so they're no longer in last place. Go Lobos! It really sucks if you're a San Jose State fan, but the big upset we had yesterday in the Mountain West, the only upset we had yesterday in the Mountain West, is Colorado State, who was sitting in 2nd place yesterday, lost to UNLV. They were 12.5-point favorites at home, and UNLV actually went and beat them. Very impressive of UNLV. Actually, I'm rather impressed with that team with a win like that. They were at 3-4 before that. They passed Nevada. But Colorado State, that was the big one. They fell from 2nd place to 3rd place. Now Wyoming has 2nd place. Pretty impressive. Great. Best case scenario if you're a Wyoming fan, outside of you would have loved Boise State to also lose this weekend, so that you can get a little bit closer there. But great outcome for Boise State. Yeah. Great outcome for Boise State, but also for Wyoming there. So let's go over. We have many games today, so I'll try to get into them. We'll start with the 11 o'clock games. I'll read them out to you real quick. We got number 9, Duke, which is at 16-3, traveling to Louisville, which is at 11-9. Louisville favored by 9 points on ESPN. 11 o'clock, we also got number 19, LSU. It's sitting at 16-4, traveling to TCU, which is at 13-4. LSU favored by 3 points on ESPN2. 11 o'clock, we got LaSalle, which is at 6-11, traveling to 25, Davidson, which is at 16-3. Davidson favored by 15 points on the USA Network. 11:30, we got Michigan, which is at 10-7, traveling to number 10, Michigan State, which is at 15-4. Michigan State favored by 4.5 points on CBS. 1 o'clock, we got Oklahoma, which is at 13-7, traveling to number 1, Auburn, which is at 19-1. Auburn favored by 9.5 points on ESPN. 1 o'clock, we got number 21, Xavier, which is at 14-5, traveling to Creighton, which is at 12-6. Xavier favored by 1.5 points on FS1. 1 o'clock, we got Missouri, which is at 8-11, traveling to number 23, Iowa State, which is at 15-5. Iowa State favored by 12 points on ESPNU. 1:30, we got Arizona State, which is at 6-11, traveling to number 3, Arizona, which is at 16-2. Arizona favored by 21 points on CBS. 3 o'clock at number 4, Baylor, which is at 18-2, traveling to Alabama, which is at 13-7. Baylor favored by 2 points on ESPN. 3:30, we got St. John's, which is at 11-7, traveling to number 14, Villanova, which is at 15-5. Villanova favored by 13.5 points on Big Ten Network. On Fox. 3:30, we got number 24, Illinois, which is at 14-5, traveling to Northwestern, which is at 9-9. Illinois favored by 3 points on the Big Ten Network. 5 o'clock, we got number 12, Kentucky, which is at 16-4, traveling to Kansas, which is traveling to number 5, Kansas, which is at 17-2. Kansas favored by 5 points, ESPN. 5 o'clock, we got Mississippi State, which sits at 13-6, traveling to number 13, Texas Tech, which is at 15-5. Texas Tech favored by 7 points on ESPN2. 5:30, we got number 20, UConn, which is at 14-4, traveling to DePaul, which is at 10-9. UConn favored by 8 points on FS1. 6 o'clock, we got Cal, which is at 9-11, traveling to number 15, USC, which is at 17-5. USC favored by 12 points on the Pac-12 Network. 7 o'clock, we got number 7, Houston, which is at 17-2, traveling to UCF, which is 12-6. Houston favored by 6 points on ESPN2. 7 o'clock, we got number 18, Tennessee, which is at 14-5, traveling to Texas, which is at 15-5. Texas favored by 2.5 points actually on ESPN. 8 o'clock, we got Portland, which is at 11-9, traveling to number 2, Gonzaga, which is at 16-2, favored by 32 points. 8:30, we got Stanford, which is at 12-6, traveling to number 7, UCLA, which is at 15-2. UCLA favored by 13 on Pac-12 Network. So I know that was a lot, guys, but we're going to go through the conferences individually. We start out with the Atlantic Coast because that was the first one I went over. And the Atlantic Coast is a very important conference with Duke playing in a very important game today. Duke obviously playing Louisville, Duke with a win, ties for first place in the ACC with Miami. Now, if you're looking at it, oh no, Miami plays Georgia Tech today. So that's the interesting thing about it. If Miami actually beats Georgia Tech, which is the likely scenario in this instance, then Miami stays first place in the ACC. But Duke can actually take first place in the ACC with a win and a Miami loss. So that's what you're going to be looking for if you're a Duke fan. If Duke wins, they break the tie they have right now. At the very least, they're going to own second place with a win. They were going to break the tie with Notre Dame. Now, on the other hand, with a loss, you fall to 6-3, and you could enter a tie with UNC and Florida State. I believe UNC plays NC State today, if I'm not mistaken. So you could actually fall farther than that. But so worst case scenario, best case scenario with a win, you fall to fourth place on your own. I believe UNC and Florida State both play today, if I'm not mistaken. But if Duke loses and UNC and Florida State both win, Duke could fall all the way conceivably to sixth place in the ACC, which is not great if you're Duke. Louisville, on the other hand, with a win, can move to 6-5. Virginia also plays today, so you could tie Virginia for 7th place in the ACC with a Louisville win and a Virginia loss. Louisville with a loss doesn't really do anything. They fall to 5-6. Still, Syracuse is the closest team, and even if they do play today, if they win the game, they move to 4-6. Best case scenario, Louisville is going to stay in 8th place if they lose today, and they have a chance to move into a tie for 7th with a win. So, moving on, we also got some SEC. We got the SEC Big 12 games. We're going to go over the SEC real quick, and then we'll do the Big 12. It doesn't really matter if you're looking at it simply from a conference standing standpoint, but it does matter tiebreaker-wise. So LSU, TCU, LSU is already sitting at the top of their tiebreaker with the 4-4 tiebreaker over Alabama. So it would just improve their tie-breaking ability. If they were to lose this game, they could fall to 16-5. If Alabama was to win their game, they would move to 14-7. Still about 2 games behind them in the tiebreaker realm of things. We also got Oklahoma at number 1, Auburn. Again, Auburn's going to have first place whether they win or lose today. They sit at 8-0 conference record, so they don't really have to worry about tiebreakers, at least for now. Then, after that, we get Missouri, Iowa State. Missouri sits at 2-5. Would love to be able to get a little bit closer to a tiebreaker, but best case scenario is Missouri wins here today, moves to 9-11, and Vanderbilt loses and falls to 10-10. The tiebreaker would still fall in Vanderbilt's favor, but Missouri would be a little bit closer to winning that tiebreaker. Then Baylor plays Alabama. Alabama right now, again, would love to get a little bit closer to LSU with the tiebreaker. Right now, if they win this game and LSU loses, then they can be about 2 games behind in tiebreaker realm. Then you have Tennessee, Texas, I believe is the last ranked matchup. Tennessee is right now losing their tiebreaker to Arkansas. But if Tennessee is to win and Arkansas is to lose their game to West Virginia today, then it would be an exact tie. They would have the exact... Tennessee would have a 15-5 record. Arkansas would have a 15-6 record. So, conceivably speaking, if the season was to end today with a Tennessee win and an Arkansas loss, Tennessee would take the 3 seed from Arkansas. So, big thing there to watch if Tennessee. Obviously, you're going to watch your team play Texas. With a loss, obviously, it's not going to affect your conference standing. You still sit at 5-3, but it's going to definitely impact your chance of catching up to Arkansas with a tiebreaker. Okay, moving on to the Big 12, because that's the other side of this coin. You got to look at the Big 12 as well to play along with that. So, TCU, obviously playing LSU. TCU not in a tiebreaker with anyone, so it doesn't really matter all that much for them. You look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is in a tiebreaker right now with Iowa State. So with a win, you can move to 14-7. With an Iowa State loss, they fall to 15-6, but be about a game behind in the tiebreaker realm behind Iowa State if you're Oklahoma. Now, that's the right side if you're Oklahoma. Again, we just went over for Iowa State. Again, if Iowa State with a win, they just build their lead over Oklahoma. But with a loss, Oklahoma gets a little bit closer for the tiebreaker, right? Then we got Baylor. Baylor obviously sits at 6-2. They sit in second place, about half a game behind Kansas. So the tiebreaker doesn't really matter to them or Kansas at this point. But yeah, it would be nice to win, I guess, if you're Baylor. You're number 4 in the country. You'd like to win. Kentucky's playing Kansas. I don't think I went over Kentucky. Now that I think about it, I'm not gonna go back. Kansas obviously doesn't need a tiebreaker. It doesn't really matter for them. Love a win, but doesn't need a tiebreaker. Mississippi State playing Texas Tech. Texas Tech would love a tiebreaker. Actually, if Texas Tech is the 3 seed right now, I believe Texas and Texas Tech have the exact same conference record and the exact same overall record. They must have played once before. I don't exactly remember it in my head, but they must have played once before, and Texas Tech must have won that matchup. But if Texas Tech is to lose this game to Mississippi State, and Texas is to win their game later on against Tennessee, Texas could take the tiebreaker over Texas Tech. So that would be pretty important moving forward if you're Texas. What else we have? And that was really it. Texas, we went over that. That's really it for the Big 12 side of things. Let's move into the Atlantic 10 area. Atlantic 10 obviously has Davidson. Davidson with a loss will tie Dayton for first place, which obviously is not ideal for Davidson. Lsu with a win can move into second to last place. They can pass Duquesne. That's really all that we got going on in the Atlantic 10. So if you're a Dayton fan, big fan of Lsu tonight. Duquesne fan, probably a big fan of Davidson. Moving down the list, we got the Big 10 side of things. We only have 2 games, I believe, going on in the Big 10 today. But we should go over them real quick. Obviously, they're big games because Michigan State, if they win this game, they will be tied for first place in the Big 10 at least for a little bit at the very least. So if Michigan State is to win this game against, best case scenario for Michigan State, they beat their rival Michigan, right, at 11 o'clock. And then when do they play? At 3 o'clock, you watch Illinois lose to Northwestern, and suddenly you're tied for first place all by yourself with Wisconsin. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario for Michigan State where they win is they win, and Illinois also wins. Illinois takes first place in the Big 10, and Michigan State and Wisconsin are tied for second. With a loss for Michigan State, they fall to 6-3 and would drop out of the tiebreaker with Ohio State right now and fall into Purdue territory. They would fall to fourth place, tie for fourth place with Purdue. Ohio State would love for this to happen, by the way. Then you move on into the Northwestern side of things. In Michigan side of things, Michigan would love a win. They'd move to 5-3, which I don't believe. Let me see. 5 out of 8 games would be a 62.5% win percentage. That would actually be better than Indiana's 6-4. They played today, though. But if Michigan is to beat Michigan State and Indiana is upset by Rutgers, actually, I don't know if it would be a little bit of an upset, but if Indiana is upset by Rutgers, Michigan would pass Indiana for 6th place in the Big 10. So that's the right side if you're Michigan. Michigan with a loss could fall to 4-4 and drop behind Rutgers if Rutgers is also to win today against Indiana. If Rutgers loses today to Indiana, Rutgers would still pass them, but they would have the same 500 record. You look at Northwestern, on the other hand. Northwestern with a win can move to 3-7 and be right behind Penn State and would pass Minnesota, which is at 2-6. So those are what's everything on the line. Loss for Northwestern doesn't really do anything that bad to them, except for they lose ground on Minnesota and Penn State and Maryland, right? Other conferences, I'm sorry, we got a lot of conferences to go over today. Big East wise, you have obviously Xavier playing Creighton, St. John's playing Villanova. So Providence apparently has the day off. Oh, and UConn playing DePaul. Forgot about that one. Providence has the day off, but with a win for Villanova, you move to 9-. Actually, I think Providence has the day off. Let's talk about Xavier Creighton real quick. Xavier with a win can move to 5-4, which I believe is better than Creighton. Oh, definitely you're going to pass Creighton with that, because a win with Xavier moves them 5-4. It would pass Creighton, who would fall to 4-4, right? So Xavier with a win can move into 5th place. With a loss, you fall to 4-5. I still believe that's better than St. John's 3-4, but St. John's also upsets Villanova on the road. Xavier could fall behind St. John's and fall into 7th place in the Big East. And then moving forward, sorry, my dad's annoying. Villanova with a loss falls to 8-3, not a big deal. UConn is not going to catch up to them. Even with a win, they would move to 6-2. DePaul with a win moves to 2-8, not a big deal, but catching up a little bit on Butler there for 3rd to last place, moving out of that 2nd to last place spot, and they're very precariously in it. Georgetown just wins the game, they're past them. Then moving forward past that, we got a little bit of Pac-12 action. We have a little bit of American action, and we have a little bit of West Coast. So let's go through that real quick. Pac-12 wise, Pac-12's here. We have obviously the Arizona State-Arizona game. We got the Cal-USC game and Stanford-UCLA game. Obviously, top 3 teams in the conference. UCLA right now has first place in the Pac-12, and if they win today against Stanford, that's going to stay the same. If UCLA loses, they can fall to 7-2, and Arizona can pass them with a 7-1 record moving into first place. So worst case scenario for UCLA, you're in second place today, and UCLA a little bit closer. So UCLA with a loss obviously happens. With a loss for Arizona, you fall to 6-2, and USC moves to 8-3. If they also win today over Cal, USC can take second place in the Pac-12. Now, if Stanford wins, they can move to 6-3, and USC also loses to Cal, they can move to 7-4. I don't think that's enough to overtake them, but it's very close for Stanford. And then moving forward, who else? We have Arizona State. Obviously, would love a win. Arizona State with a win. It doesn't really affect them though. They just get a little bit farther from Cal. Cal with a win could conceivably take over Arizona State's spot. They can pass Arizona State with a win and an Arizona State loss. What else? That's really it. Those are the 2 teams I had to go over in the Pac-12. Let's go back to let's go to the American real quick, and then we'll talk about the West Coast. So the American, we only got 1 team going on. Obviously, it's Houston playing UCF. UCF with a win can tie Memphis for 6th place in the American. Would like that if you're UCF. If you lose, there's not a big difference. East Carolina's so far behind, it doesn't really make a big difference. Houston with a win obviously stays in 1st place. For the American, with a loss, they drop into a tie. With SMU, they hold the tiebreaker, but still, SMU would be in a tie for 1st place in the American. And then finally, we got the West Coast Conference. West Coast Conference obviously just has Gonzaga in it. Gonzaga with a win would stay in 1st place unless St. Mary's plays today and they win. St. Mary's does play today against Pepperdine. So if Gonzaga is to lose and St. Mary's is to win, then St. Mary's gets into a tie for 1st place in the West Coast Conference. Then if you're looking at it, Portland with a win can move to 3-3 into a tie for 6th place with San Francisco. The Dons, if they fall, they can enter a tie for 7th place with LMU. So basically that's what's in line today. That's a lot, I know, to comprehend and unpack there. So what's my pick? There's a lot of games to go over, but I think I got to go with Texas over Tennessee, right? I'm a little bit worried. We've had 10 days out of our last 11 with an upset, the only exception being that Texas Tech lost in double overtime to Kansas. But if they had pulled out, we'd had 11 straight days with an upset matching one of my criteria. If Texas, I'm a little bit worried because they've lost 2 days straight, but I think Texas has a legitimate shot at winning here. I think they're the favorite in this game. I think Texas has a really good team built together. I think they're better than Tennessee's squad. So give me the Longhorns to pull off the upset. Everybody's a GGB saying adios amigos and go Longhorns.